bum, bum. Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the 13 books I hope to read this July. So let's get into it. Alright, our first book is actually Blood Like Magic by Leslie Sambury. I just had this book in my recent book haul, but it sounds so good I don't think I can wait to read it. So this one is about Boya, and she is a witch, and she's been waiting a very long time to be able to complete her challenge and see if she can become a real witch. But she fails her challenge, and an ancestor of hers lets her know that she can have a second chance, and she agrees. So she has to kill the first boy that she ever falls in love with. And if she fails at that, not only does she lose her powers, but all of her family loses theirs as well. So Boya has to figure out how to fall in love, and then how to obviously save herself, her family's bloodline of magic, the boy she ends up falling in love with, and figure out what she can give to the ancestors instead of blood. Our next book is The Royals Next Door by Karina Hale. This book sounds so good. It's starting to remind me of all those royal books that for some reason I'm very drawn to right now. So this book is about Piper, and she moves on to a small island, to this community where she's not welcomed and hasn't figured out her place to belong. But she is there to help her mentally ill mother. And she is a elementary school teacher. She is a podcaster by night. She's a romance book reader, and she honestly seems like someone that could be my best friend. But Piper actually gets a new neighbor, the British Royals. The princess and the prince actually move into their rental next door. So she starts obviously spying on them and their super hot new bodyguard that they went ahead and brought with them. And his name is Harrison Cole. But Harrison Cole is one of those guys that wants no nonsense, and every time that he bumps into Piper in town and around the community, she is left feeling hotter and more confused every single time. But once she is swept into a royal scandal, she finds herself in the need of rescue by Harrison, and as he's trying to protect her, she also realizes that she needs to protect herself. This one sounds super good. I don't know what it is about royals right now, but that's just what I've been drawn to. The next book is a book that's been around all last summer, and I'm finally hoping to be able to get to it this summer. This is The Beach Trap by Allie Brady. So this one is actually about 12-year-old Kate and Blake. They're best friends at summer camp, and they have this really quick bond that's just unmistakable to everybody around them until the very last day of summer camp, when they both realize that they share the same father. So jumping ahead 15 years later, their father actually passes away, and they are both left a beach house that they have to share. So they both go to this beach house. Kate clearly wants to renovate the house because she had all these childhood memories there. And Blake, being broke and needing a little bit of help, she wants to just sell it. So they are forced to take the summer to renovate. They're forced to relive their past trauma that they had with finding out that they have the same dad, and how that looks in the future. And then by the end of the summer, Kate is supposed to buy Blake out, but we're not sure if that's really going to happen. This book really follows mainly the girls and their friendship and their unmistakable bond, and how they are going to get past their past with each other and figure out how to move on as sisters. But there is a little bit of a love interest for both of them in this book, but mainly it's just about their bonds as sisters, which sounds really good. Four Aunties and a Wedding by Jessie Q. Sutanto is my next one that I really want to get around to. But this is actually the second book, and the first book is Dial A for Aunties, which I read, I believe, last summer. So this one actually is about Medi, who somehow mistakenly ends up killing her blind date that her mother actually sets her up with. So then she is forced to ask her meddling mother and her 3 aunties for some help, and they end up trying to hide the body for her. But it mistakenly ends up in a cake cooler and sent to a destination wedding on an island off the coast of California, because the one auntie owns a cake baker or a bakery, and she's making the wedding cake for this billionaire wedding. And Maddie is actually the photographer, and her mother and her other aunt are also involved in the wedding, and they have this whole wedding business. So they really don't want to get caught and have their whole weekend of this billionaire wedding completely ruined. But when Maddie gets there, she bumps into her old college sweetheart. They broke up, and she still cannot stop thinking about him, and he just happens to be the manager at this hotel. So she is trying to escape murder charges, find that dead body and hide it, and she's trying to rekindle her romance with her ex, and all these things around trying to make that billionaire's wedding the dream wedding so that they can promote their business a little better. Our next book is Jen McKinley's Wait For It, and this one sounds super good and super different. So this one follows Annabelle, who's a 30-year-old. She is twice divorced, and she's just dodged a second proposal by one of her ex-husbands. So she's desperate to get out of a Boston winter. So when her dream job in Phoenix as a graphic design firm opens up, she jumps at the opportunity to apply and actually gets it. So she jumps on that plane, goes and rents a home from her landlord, which she obviously thinks is a grumpy old man because he leaves her really nasty notes. But then she finally meets Nick, and she finds out that he's not cranky at all, but he actually is in a wheelchair, and he's just not really feeling life right now because he had a stroke a year before, and there's no physical reason for his paralysis, but he just can't get over that paralyzing fear of what his life is going to look like now. Sorry, that was my phone. Now that he is disabled. So, not trying to get swept into a new relationship, Annabelle tries to help him out and figure out life. And then obviously she gets swept into that new relationship anyways. And they try to just help each other learn how to embrace life again. Back to wedding season stuff. Let's jump into The Secret Bridesmaid by Katie Burchell. This book I have not seen around very often or very much lately. I picked it up last summer, not long ago. But this one follows Sophie, who is actually so good at being a bridesmaid that she made it her professional career. So Sophie is a professional bridesmaid in London, and she is the bride's fake best friend along with planning their dream day. And Sophie is so good at her job that she actually gets hired by Lady Victoria Swan, who was a swimsuit model, or not a swimsuit model, just a model back in the 1970s. So she's very high in society. And she is hired to plan her wedding and be her bridesmaid. So Sophia takes this as a great career advancement, because if she can pull off this society wedding, she can just keep expanding her business. So, but when she meets Victoria's daughter, she is just out to make Sophie's life a living nightmare. And then when she meets Victoria's older son, she realizes that he is completely off limits from now until forever, but she just keeps bumping into him and can't get him out of her head. So we will see how this turns out with that rival wedding, and if she really does find that love interest that she wants so badly. A little less romance, but still super good. This book is Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco. I always think I'm pronouncing her name wrong, so I'm sorry if I am. This book is actually the second in this YA series. But the first one is Stalking Jack the Ripper, and that one was super good. It's a very slow romance because of the time frame that they're in, But in that one, the first book is about Audrey Rose, and she is a lord's daughter, so she is in wealth and privilege, but she has a secret life where she sneaks away and works in her uncle's morgue because she's really drawn to forensic science and forensic medicine, but she is obviously not able to study. But she actually gets to work on the Jack the Ripper murders because she works at the morgue and they're getting the corpses, and she works with Thomas, who knows that she is a lady and that she has this other life, and he works with her side by side to crack those cases. And they obviously, it's a very, very slow romance, but it is super, super good. And then they obviously move on to Romania, where they get some more murders and they think that it is Prince Dracula. So we'll see how that one goes. I'm hoping that I'm feeling up for a fantasy this month. Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett sounds so good. I absolutely adore Jen Bennett books. They're just so good. This one in particular is about best friends turned enemies at a school dance. So I don't know why they're enemies now, but hopefully we figure that one out. This one is about Zori and Lennon, and they go on a group camping trip where they're just forced together, which is against their will, obviously. But something goes horribly wrong and they end up stranded in the wilderness together. So they have to work together to make it out of the wilderness and back to safety while battling these jabs that they keep throwing at each other and battling nature. But maybe being alone in the wilderness for several days, trying to survive and watching the stars sky next to a campfire might actually fix their relationship and might just grow a new one. This one sounds so good. I can't wait to jump into it. I'm kind of excited to see how their camping trip goes wrong with this group of friends and how those two just end up stranded alone together and how they figure out how to get home being just a couple teenagers. Island Time by Georgia Clark also sounds super good. It sounds super fun for summer. This one is about the Kellys and the Lees, and they are natural enemy families. And the only thing they have in common is that their daughters are married. So they take a family trip to an excluded island, but a volcano erupts really close to them. So they get stranded on this island for 6 whole weeks with only their family party and 2 workers of the island. So they have to figure out how their families are going to mesh together and what everybody wants and if their lives are the way that they want them to be. So when they get off this island, maybe things will change and Kellys and the Lees might actually not be enemies anymore. That sounds really good. It's kind of crazy that they have daughters that are married and they've actually gone through this crazy, messy family, and yet the families still just dislike each other even though their daughters are in love. So I'm going to jump into that one really quick. Speaking of jumping, From the Jump by Lacey Walden is my next one. And this one just looks so inviting and so summery. This one is actually about Liv, who is an absolute yes woman. She says yes to everybody, puts everything else before herself until one day she finally decides to just say no. She quits her job. She jumps on a plane with her group of friends from college to South Africa and has this really great trip. And one of her friends just happens to be the emotionally unavailable Lucas, which she is super fond of. And when they get home, something happens on that vacation that makes them kind of drive a wedge between each other, all of the group of friends, not just Lucas and Liv. But when they get home, her fallout from quitting her job and saying no starts to just kind of eat at her, and she just finds herself falling back into Lucas's arms every single time to help figure out this part of her life while she's trying to make sure that her group of friends from college all stay friends from that incident that happens on their vacation. So I don't know. I feel like this one's going to be mostly about when they get home from the vacation, but it's still summery vibes, and I hope they give us some plot from their South African trip, because that sounds really gorgeous. Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake is another one that has been around for a couple years, and her third book is actually coming out at the end of this year, but I still haven't gotten to the first one, so I'm hoping to get this off my TBR this summer. This one is obviously about Delilah, and she is a photographer in New York City, and she's asked by her sister Astrid to come back home. I don't remember if it tells me where, to Bright Falls, for her wedding, so that she can photograph her wedding for her. And when she gets there, she meets her old childhood friend, Claire, and they're not clashing very well. But they decide that they need to work together to actually break off the wedding between Astrid and her fiance, because they think he's just a horrible person and they don't want Astrid with her or with him. So they decide to work together to break up this wedding weekend. And while they do, they find out that maybe they aren't as close of friends anymore, but maybe they're a little something more. This one sounds super good. I've only heard really great things about this book, so I'm really hoping to jump right into it. And obviously the second book is Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail. So clearly they break off the wedding, but even though that happens, this book mainly just focuses on Delilah and Claire anyways. So we'll get to that one. Our last book is actually another historical fiction that I'm hoping to read this summer while I watch Bridgerton, because I really want to catch up on Bridgerton, and this book just gives me Bridgerton vibes. This is The Davenports, and this is set in 1910, and it's the Davenport family. They're a black family immersed in wealth and status in the ever-changing United States. So this one actually follows the black family. This follows two of the Davenport sisters, who one is ready to just get married and live her duties as the oldest daughter, and the other daughter wants nothing to do with that, and she wants to just work on cars all day. And then their childhood friend, who is now their maid, is also a big part of this story and what her story is. So I'm really excited to jump into this one. I haven't really read too much about wealthy black families in this time frame, but I'm trying to slowly work my way into a little more of the historical fiction. So I'm hoping this one is super good, and I hope it pairs really well with Bridgerton. So if you guys have read this one, let me know in the comments if I should watch it with Bridgerton, or if I should just go ahead and read it and not try to compare it to Bridgerton at all. All right, so that is the 13 books that I plan to read this July, and hopefully I get to them, because if I don't, they're just going to stay on my physical TBR for even longer, and I really would rather not, because they all sound so fantastic. But if you've read any of these, leave me a comment down below, and if you made it this far in the video, go ahead and give me a sunshine emoji so I know that you're having a great summer too. Bye!